morning, and hey now, PSW staff, clients, and friends joining us. Welcome to Thursday's class. We're almost through another week. It's been really fun. We looked at the great film composer, Nino Rota, who scored The Godfather and all those Fellini films that were wonderful to see. Then tomorrow we're going to see the film scoring results for E.T. So I can't wait for that. You guys sent in some great work, so thank you for that. I'm very proud of what we're doing, and we'll continue to do. So we need to go back to the city I love, you love, John loves, Bonnie loves, my family loves, LA. We need to do another LA. There was a week when we didn't have time to do one, but I still want to do this weekly. It's just it's an important part to know what's the history in our city that we live in, especially in quarantine. We need some virtual trips. So last week we looked at the gorgeous Coconut Grove and the glamour and the glitz of the Ambassador Hotel and the nightclub, the Coconut Grove, that was there. We're going to look at something else that's local, that's still standing there, so it won't be too sad of a story. We're going to look at the beautiful, and we're going to, in our backyard, mind you, in Inglewood, the beautiful Forum. Kind of a drag when your baby don't look. Now, for those who grew up in Los Angeles in the 70s and 80s, there was really only one place to see a rock concert or a sporting event, and that was at the Forum. And people dubbed it the Fabulous Forum. And this is located a few blocks down from where our school is, and I'm sure all of us know a little bit about it, or have seen about it, or definitely have passed by it. So it's on Manchester, and we're going to look at the history of the building and what acts performed there, and also the importance of technology, in a way, of new music coming out, and the importance of the venue, and how this venue was one of the venues that changed the history of music. Yes, that's a very big statement, right? But we're gonna dive in to see how that actually happened. So, let's go to the Forum. The Forum arrived at a super important time in rock and roll history. It was built in 1967, and that is a magical year for rock and roll music, for the history of the civil rights, and as long as other political movements and artistic movements, but particularly with rock and roll. 1967 was the year everything was happening, and this is when the Forum is built. And so this is super important because, like we looked at the Whiskey's 1964, right? 3 years later, not that long, but it seems like a lifetime ago, because what the Whiskey was important with, they had all those acts, those famous acts that people would do concerts at, but many bands would play in one night, so the Doors would play, and then maybe, I don't know, the Byrds would play after. So that was kind of common because, they had like maybe 5 or 10 songs, maybe not even that many, but 3 to 5 songs that were really great songs. Some of these bands, we're just generalizing, and that's because they would record on the 45 RPM, which is like a single record, or a record that would hold a few songs. And that's what pop and rock music was recorded on. Even like Sinatra and Nat King Cole, they would record, singles with just a few songs. So, and this is the year, though, it's not invented, but this is used more when the 33 and a third LP comes out, and that's long play LP, but that's when bands are able to record more music on a record. Hence, the album is now coming out to be popular. Whereas the Whiskey, people would perform songs. The Forum is where people can perform live albums, complete all the way through, that people have heard of on the record, and they can actually see the band perform the whole album live. The Forum is great timing in the sense where all now music is being elevated to just catchy 2-3 minute songs on the radio. Now it's being elevated to an album like Sgt. Pepper's that comes out in 1967. So the Forum was a venue to hold larger acts, longer music. This came out a year before Madison Square Garden, and this is, like we talked about at the beginning of class, the birth of arena rock. I mean, now, we have Kiss and we have huge bands. Even Paul McCartney will sell out. But back then, this was really the beginning of when bands would sell out stadiums. Of course, we know that now. I mean, we looked at Dodger Stadium and when the Beatles played there, and that was very not really conventional for a band to play at a stadium, because who can fill 40,000 seat stadium? Probably the Beatles, but that's maybe about it. But now with the Forum, we have 17,000 seats. That's way different than the Whiskey, which can hold, I don't know, a few hundred maybe? I guess I should have researched that, but I mean, we're just kind of ballparking here. Obviously, there's a huge difference. So let's just talk about the building. Forum was designed by Charles Lookman Associates, and they built Madison Square Garden the next year, in 1968. They were able to engineer the structure of the building, so it had no major support pillars. This was unheard of for an indoor arena the size of the Forum, and they wanted to make it look like a modern-day Colosseum in Rome. And this is, we've talked about Art Deco with the Wiltern and other beautiful buildings in Los Angeles. This is an example of new formalism. And formalism is a type of architecture that takes classical architecture and strict symmetrical shapes, and that's associated. So that's different than Art Deco. And it was built by Jack Kent Cooke, and he was the owner of the Lakers and the founder of the LA Kings, a Canadian-American businessman who really made a huge, great living with sports and broadcasting, particularly in Los Angeles. And if we look at 1967, as we talked about, Sgt. Pepper's happened. What else happened? Rolling Stone magazine gets started. That magazine is still important today. Again, part of rock and roll history is started. Culturally and politically, what's happening? Well, finally, interracial marriage in some crazy way is now, it's declared constitutional by the Supreme Court, bars other states from making interracial marriages a crime. Yes, it was a crime before 1967. I have no idea, because it doesn't seem like that long ago. So this is now interracial couples can get married. We have the Monterey Pop Festival that summer, which obviously huge bands get their start. We did a class on Otis Redding. Otis Redding dies in the plane crash in 1967. And then The Summer of Love is 1967, which is, where teenagers are smoking pot and listening to the Grateful Dead and not listening to their parents, and for better or worse, starting a new, a new generation of people that question authority, which hadn't really been done before in America. So Cooke builds this in the same year that all this stuff is happening. And what do young people need? They need that when they're doing a movement. Sure, they need, streets to march or whatever, but they also need a venue to celebrate these, their music, because music is such an important part, of course, of just making us feel good, but also just the times changing and politically. I mean, all of these, music is so important, obviously. And during Cooke's tenure, I mean, this is when the Lakers had Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. I mean, this was like the year, and the LA Olympics in 1984 were hosted there. And, just some highlights of who performed there. Cream, they were huge. The Doors, Jimi Hendrix performed there. The Rolling Stones, Jefferson Airplane, Led Zeppelin performed 16 times there. Jackson 5 released 2 live albums, live at the Forum in 1970. The Bee Gees. Kiss was called from a 1977 3-night run. Paul McCartney played his first Los Angeles show since 1966. Since with the Beatles, he played his first show with Wings in 1976. Elvis Presley performed sold-out afternoon and evening concerts in 1974. Queen finished their tour at the Forum in 1982, and this was their last ever headlining performance in the U.S. before Freddie Mercury passed away. Diana Ross recorded a popular television special at the Forum in 1981. Prince held a 21-show residency at the Forum in 2011. And right before Michael Jackson died with the This Is It, that's where he would rehearse at the Forum. But, once Staples, came about in 1999, all the activity of the sports and the concerts, that kind of took the place. And the Forum kind of was in disarray for a little bit. And but in 2014, it became a National Register of Historic Places. And so it's a landmark, which it can't be taken down, which is great. And it really has had a rebirth with artists, and people are performing there. Obviously, not right now, but it's been very successful in the last few years, and years going ahead as being a performance venue that's huge. And what's really important, before we end, it's a pillar for the Inglewood community. It really is. I mean, and not just a column pillar. A bad joke right there. With the community, in the sense of it's required to staff at least 35% of the jobs have to be with local residents of the community. I think that's great. I didn't know that 35% of people that work there have to live in that community. So again, you learn something every day. I think that's terrific. I love that it's there, that it's such an epic. I went one time to see a Kings game, but I was maybe 9 or 10. But it was with my dad. It was really, very fun. But yes, what a national iconic landmark that's really close to us in the neighborhood. We're very lucky, and we pass by it all the time. But next time, just wave to it and be like, "Hey, that's where history was made." I mean, all those artists that we talked about, amazing. I mean, changed, like I said, changed music, but also changed the world. These people. I sweat when I get excited. So yes, a little bit, but that's only because I'm proud of the work we do. Okay, tomorrow we see the film scoring results for E.T., so hold on to your seats, okay? All right, love you. See you tomorrow.